And traditionally, if I asked you how is the Tata Group structured, you'd say, oh my God, there are 150 companies. There's a big man called Ratan Tata on the top. It's called Tata Sons, which is actually the father. And then under that, there are various companies. And you'll draw the typical organogram, a mechanical engineer's delight, which has clean, lean structures showing grandfather sitting on the top and great-great-grandson sitting at the bottom. In reality, the way Tata Group operates is the other way around. The Tata Sons is sitting at the bottom and it's actually owned by the trusts. And it's like a biological metaphor rather than an engineering metaphor. From the roots spring the values or whatever you stand for, what is the purpose of your business, and it starts having offshoots of branches. And so you find the older companies which are well known, like Tata Steel, Tata Motors, Tata Consultancy, and there are higher offshoots which are even younger companies. And right at the top, at the canopy of the tree, you see the youngest companies. And people often ask me, how in Tatas will you manage to give attention to all these numerous companies that you have? Because they regard it as the other way around. It's embedded at the bottom as the great-grandson company of a grandfather. And I show them this chart to say it's the other way around. The grandfather is at the bottom and the great-grandsons are up on the canopy of the tree getting the morning sun and the cool breeze that is blowing so that they get the photosynthesis effect, but they are the ones who need the photosynthesis. And it's through this method, I argue, that Tatas have been uniquely innovative for over 120 years. How do you get to be innovative if your younger talent and your younger companies are not sitting up on the top? So this is the reality of the way Tatas actually operates. And nowhere in the world will you find, I have not come across a single example. So I'll make my statement with boldness. In a management institute, you're supposed to say it with clarity until you're challenged to the contrary. I have never come across a single example where the holding company is private and the son companies are public. It's always the other way around. Always the holding companies are listed. Unilever, Procter & Gamble, IBM, ABB. The holding company is listed and then you have 100% subsidiaries as far as you can. Here's the other way around. The holding company is private. And who owns the holding company? 2/3 of it owned by charitable trusts. So if I work very hard to make an extra dollar for the company, legitimately, my boss's name doesn't appear on the Barron's list of richest men in the world. My company's name doesn't come there at all. Because some charitable trust has got richer. And in a small way that makes me feel good. Not because I mind my boss getting rich, but I like the charitable trust to get richer. Don't tell my boss I said all this. So I would like to now take, given these sorts of perspectives, what has been the view from a Tata perspective? Since Atanu said I should talk about corporate experiences, I am giving you a lot of Tata stuff here. It's open for you to ask questions and challenge in a few minutes as soon as I shut up. I have on my BlackBerry, as I was coming in for this talk, a message from my son. My son works in Fidelity in Hong Kong. And his email to me says, "Hi Dad, I just met our group chairman, Mr. Ed Johnson. And when he learned that I am your son, he said, I wonder how Tatas have existed for over 100 years. Can you get your father to send me a little material on this?" It's actually on my email. I'm not making this up. Okay? And I ask that if you use the biological metaphor of nature, you get very different outcomes from the metaphor of physics and engineering. And yet all of management pedagogy and research is based on physics and mechanical engineering, thermodynamics, rather than on biology. Not all of it, much of it owes it to that sort of genre. If an organization, if the average Fortune 500 company has a shelf life of 30 years, 35 years, they say the average CEO lasts under 3 years. I'm damn lucky. I've lasted 10 years, so I say, listen, hang on while it's good. If somebody has lasted 120 years, it seems worth studying. You come across these anthropologists who find some 3 old people in Uzbekistan who are baked under the sun for the last 140 years, and they want to know how they lived that long. And then they'll probably find that they smoked 500 cigarettes a day, and they will come to a conclusion and publish a paper that 500 cigarettes a day assures you long life. These kinds of research you do find. So I seek your indulgence. I'm not drawing any such profound conclusions, but this is an unusual case of a company that has lasted 120 years, and in using the color coding that you see there, in social application innovations, there's a blue. For this product and service and process, I've used a pink, and for the business model, it's a green. I've just put down quickly 29 innovations over 120 years. I'm not going to go into each of them, because then you'll be sitting here for a very long time. But I'll touch upon just 2 or 3 of them so that you get a flavor of it. Okay, this is on autopilot. Okay. So in 1887, that's when Jamshedji Tata began Tata Textiles. Until then, it was a trading company. He adopted ring spindles. Now, today, I'm sitting in Textile City. Ring spindles would look like very old hat. But the history has recorded that Jamshedji Tata got the idea of a ring spindle when he visited textile units in America which had adopted it, but which were not adopted in Lancashire. They were not adopted in Lancashire because it would result in joblessness. And he said, why? Since I haven't employed anybody in the first place, why should I not have a world-class? Think 1887. He called it Empress Mills because on the 1st of January 1877, Queen Victoria was declared Empress of India. And at that time, to think of putting ring spindles, I suppose was, in the context of those times, very innovative. 1892, Tata Trusts. One could argue what's so great about a trust, and why do you call that an innovation? This is a trust that came into existence before the Rockefeller Trust, before the Ford Foundation, before the Carnegie Foundation, before the Leverhulme Trust. In fact, I'll go one step further. To the best of my knowledge, it's probably the world's first trust. And I'm defining a trust not as a tax dodging device, because Rockefeller also set up a trust in 1882. He had made a lot of money out of oil, and the only way he could protect it from US IRS taxes was to create a trust. And then 15 years later they caught on and he had to close down his trust. But in 1892, to open a trust before all these very, very well-known international names, in the context of those times, and this was not a trust to create a temple in your village, which was very common in Indian mercantile community, or to dig a well for your community, or to open a school for your community children, but it's an open trust for anybody. And this trust has since then sent out 3,000 people, 2 of whom have become presidents of India, 1 has become a director general of CSIR, and many have reached great positions of distinction, Atomic Energy Commission chairman. So it's a trust that has worked well and had tremendous societal implications. I won't go into all of these, but I wanted to give you a flavor of why some of those which might look pretty commonplace in today's context I have included in this list. Indian Hotels was opened in 1903, and the story goes that Jamshedji Tata was refused entry into the Watson Hotel in Bombay because he was with a foreign guest, and he said, it sounds rather Bahadur story, I don't know how true it is,